You wake up before dawn in the world's first great city, and today you're going to brew the thing that holds it all together. Your name isn't recorded. History forgot you, but the liquid you'll make today will feed laborers, pay wages, and honor the gods. Without brewers like you, these first cities, Uruk and Ur, and the packed mud brick maze of Mesopotamia would grind to a halt by nightfall. Because here, 4,000 years ago, beer isn't just a drink. It's the glue that holds a giant city together. They even use an enormous share of the grain harvest for the beer rather than bread. You'll often hear the figure 40%. Treat that one gently, because it gets repeated far more often than it gets sourced. What the account tablets actually show is barley moving into breweries in staggering volumes. One temple ledger balancing 1,400 units of grain against 1,000 units of finished beer. And notice it's barley, not wheat. The soil of southern Mesopotamia is slowly poisoning itself with salt, and barley tolerates salt better than wheat does. So barley is what grows here. Barley is what you brew. Now, you've probably heard the reason people drink so much of it, that the water would kill you, and beer was the safe alternative. It's a wonderful story. Historians have spent decades trying to kill it. Mesopotamians drank water constantly. They dug canals for it, hauled it in jars, and wrote about it without a hint of fear. Ancient beer was weak, nowhere near strong enough to sterilize anything. And as far as anyone can tell, Sumerian brewers didn't boil their mash at all, because fuel in a treeless floodplain was far too precious to burn for that. So beer wasn't a substitute for water. It was food. Thick, sour, calorie-dense, made from the one grain a hot, salty country could reliably grow. That's the real reason it mattered. And honestly, it's the better story. One more thing before we step into your day. The goddess watching over you work is Ninkasi. Her name is usually translated as the lady who fills the mouth. There's a hymn sung in her honor, pressed into clay around 1800 years before the Common Era. And you will absolutely hear it called the oldest recipe in human history. Be a little careful with that. It's a song. It carries no measurements, no temperatures, no timings, and the scholars who work on it warn that reading it as brewing instructions means quietly filling the gaps with modern chemistry. What it certainly is the closest thing we have to Sumerian telling us how beer was made. In 1989, a San Francisco brewer named Fritz Maytag built a beer around it with the help of an anthropologist. The result was described as having the smoothness and effervescence of champagne with a faint aroma of dates. Whether that's anything like what you taste, nobody can say. Let's find out how you make it. You step into the cool pre-dawn air. Your home is one-room house. Mud brick like all the others, pressed shoulder to shoulder in the craft workers' quarters. The city is already stirring. Bakers at their ovens, water carriers holding jars, and distant bleating of goats driven out to pasture. But you're headed to the brewery, a long, low building at the edge of the temple complex. Because brewing here isn't only a craft, it's institutional work. The beer you make will pay the laborers rebuilding the ziggurat. The porters hauling stone, the weavers at the temple looms. Without your beer, the work stops. You push through the doorway. Inside, the air is thick and yeasty, sweet and slightly sour all at once. 3 other women are already here, older brewers and girls learning the trade. Brewing runs through women's hands here more than almost any other craft. Ninkasi is a goddess, not a god. The tavern keepers, written into the law of Hammurabi, are women, described as she throughout. But be honest about the picture, because it's more interesting than the slogan. In the great institutional breweries attached to temples and places, the overseers named in the account tablets are increasingly men. Women brew in households, in taverns, and alongside you at this vat. The knowledge is yours. The ledger, more and more, is somebody else's. Your hands know what to do. First, the malt. Days ago, you soaked barley until it sprouted. Then spread it in the sun to dry. Now it sits in tall clay jars. The sprouted grain sweet and earthy when you crack it between your teeth. You scoop it into a wide stone mortar and begin to grind, working a heavy pestle in slow circles. The hymn calls Ninkasi, the one who bakes with lofty shovel, the sprouted barley. You can almost hear it as you work. The rhythm of the pedal matches the rhythm of the words. This part takes hours. Your arms burn, sweat drips, but you can't rush it. The malt has to be coarse, not fine, somewhere between flour and gravel. Get it wrong, and the whole batch is lost. While you grind, one of the older brewers tends to the papier. That's the dark baked barley product stacked near the fire, dense as a brick. You'll hear it called twice baked bread, and that's the usual description. But the honest answer is the papier is one of the real mysteries of Mesopotamia brewing. We know it was made from barley. We know its preparation involved heating in an oven and probably some germination. Beyond that, the scholars who've dug hardest into it say plainly that we don't know what it was or exactly what it did. But you know this much. Without papier, you don't get beer. She breaks the loaves into rough chunks and drops them into an enormous clay vat, taller than you, wide enough to hold a person. Then comes the malt you've been grinding, then water, hauled in heavy jars. You pour over the malt and papier, and the whole mass goes slack and heavy. Now the sweetness. Date syrup, thick and dark, and almost painfully sweet, drips from a clay jar into the vat. Dates grow everywhere here, and the syrup is liquid gold. The hymn names honey and wine going into the mix too. Some batches get coriander or juniper, herbs to cut the sweetness and add depth. No hops. Nobody will write down hops in beer for nearly 3,000 years. And when they finally do, it'll be a monk in northern France. This is a different kind of brewing, older and wilder, and the flavors are nothing you'd recognize as beer today. You stir the whole mass with a long wooden paddle. It's thick, almost like porridge, and the smell rises up warm and heavy. This is the moment the hymn calls watering the earth-covered malt. And here's a line that survives on clay, though nobody is quite sure of it. One passage seems to say that noble dogs guard the mixture, even from the potentates. The translator marked that phrase with a question mark, because the reading is uncertain. Maybe it means guard dogs really did patrol the brewery, keeping officials from helping themselves to something this valuable. Maybe it means something we've certainly lost entirely. I much prefer the first version. You can hear them out there now, low and restless in the dark. The vat will sit for days. You'll check it, stir it, watch it bubble as fermentation takes hold. Wild yeast floating in the air, living on the grain, invisible and unnamed for another 4,000 years. Sugars become alcohol. The murky liquid sours slightly, brightens, comes alive. But today, you're not starting a batch, you're finishing one. The older brewer gestures you toward a vat that's been working for 3 days. You peer in it. The surface is foamy and active, the smell sharp and tangy. This one is ready. Together you tip it and pour it into smaller clay jars, each sealed with clay stopper. The beer is cloudy, thick with grain sediment. And when you dip a finger to taste it, it's sour. Lightly alcoholic, faintly sweet from the dates, nothing like the clear, golden lagers of the future. This is ancient, elemental, strange, and it's about to pay a city. By mid-morning, you're hauling the sealed jars to the temple courtyard. Hundreds of coworkers are gathered, men and women who've been digging irrigation channels, hauling stone, weaving linen, grinding grain. They line up, and a scribe with a clay tablet checks each name. One by one, they step forward, and you pour their rations into clay bowls. Rations are measured in cilia, a unit close to a liter. An ordinary laborer takes home a cilia or 2 a day, a thick, nourishing beer that counts as food and drink at once. Senior officials and temple administrations draw several times that. They'll drink some, share some, trade some. Beer is a currency here, and this system is old, even now. A clay tablet from Uruk, made around 3,100 years before the Common Era, a full 1,000 years before this morning. Records the same transaction in the earliest writings anyone has found. A human head eating from a bowl, the sign for a ration. Beside it, a conical vessel, the sign for beer. It sits in the British Museum today. The world's oldest surviving pay record, and the pay is beer. You watch them drink. Some sip straight from the bowl, others use long straws, over a meter of them, reed for most people. And for the wealthy, something far finer. One pulled from the royal cemetery of Ur is gold foil and lapis lazuli. Set in bitumen, the straws aren't decoration. They let you drink from below the thick raft of grain floating on top. A cylinder seal carved at Kafajah about 4,500 years ago shows exactly this. 2 fingers leaning over a shared vessel, straws dipped in, drinking together. Because beer here isn't solidarity, it's shared. It's the glue that holds the city together. Now you're standing inside the world's first experiment with urban life. Uruk at its height held somewhere between 50 and 80,000 people, packed into a space no settlement had ever needed to be before. No sewage system, no sanitation, as you'd understand it, and it works. Barely. Imperfectly, but it works. Partly because of what you just made. Not because beer replaced the water, because beer is how a city converts a barley surplus into something you can store, measure, carry, and hand to tens of thousands of people as day's wage. Beer is the accounting system. Beer is the invisible infrastructure underneath civilizations itself. You return to the brewery as the sun climbs. There's another batch to start. More malt to grind, more beer to bake. Your arms ache, your back aches. The heat is brutal, but this is your craft. And in a world where most women's labor leaves no trace at all, this labor is written down. Your work shows up in the ledgers. Your beer has a name and a number beside it. You're not just a worker. You're a reason the ledger balances. The hymn runs through your head as you work. You're the one who handles the dough with a big shovel, mixing it in a pit of beer with sweet aromatics. You're the one who soaks the malt in a jar, the waves rising, the waves falling. Every line a step, every step a prayer. The song and the work are the same thing. By afternoon, you're finishing a new batch. A handful of crushed juniper berries, a pour of dark date syrup. When it fermentates, it'll be tart, herbal, faintly piney. Each batch comes out slightly different. The modern brewers and archaeologists who've tried to recreate this say the results vary widely. Murky and tart and sour. Nothing like the clean, predictable beer of today. One scholar has gone further and argued we can't even be certain the Sumerian drink was beer as we define it, or how much alcohol it carried at all. The unpredictability is the honest part. You're working with wild yeast, open air, clay pots, and the whims of the gods. As the day cools, you step outside. The city sprawls in front of you. Mud, brick, and palm fronds. The ziggurat rising in the distance, the canals catching the last light. Thousands of people moving, working, living, all of it running on grain and water and the transformation you perform every single day. Your name is lost. We'll never find it on a tablet or a temple wall, but the beer you made outlived the empire that drank it. The hymn you sang is still being sung by people 4,000 years downstream. And the city you kept, fed, became the blueprint for every city that followed. We still gather around drinks. We still toast. We still share the same ritual, the same need, the same understanding that some things are worth doing together. You're standing at the very beginning of that long line. A clay bowl in your hands, the taste of dates and barley on your tongue, the city humming all around you, and you made this, all of it, one jar at a time. Before we leave you, here's where you can keep walking with us. Every week we step into another moment history forgot, another life that built the world you're standing in. So if you enjoyed the video, hit subscribe.